Hello everyone there, this is Daniel and my vlogging experience with the National Youth Orchestra Canada, and I have a special guest on today's episode, the one, the only, Tom Allen. I'm going to ask him a few questions, he's going to answer the best of his abilities. First question. Why do you feel it is important for us musicians of the orchestra to understand the pieces that we're playing?
I think it is important. It's important to know where the music comes from. But mostly, the honest answer is, I like telling the stories. And this is a chance for me to tell stories about music to other musicians. So it's really fun because most of the pieces that are part of the standard repertoire have all kinds of really cool background stories behind them. Political intrigue and romance and sexual adventures and all kinds of things. All composers are real people like anybody else, only they're a little more so sometimes. So if you can get at those stories and really bring them out, then it's kind of a lot of fun, and it just brings a little sizzle to the process.
How do you prepare for one of these lectures? How do you find out what's interesting, what's relevant?
It takes me a lot longer than I wish it did, honestly. Because I have a radio show, I'm always looking for stories about pieces of music, and so I have a bunch of those in my memory. But the process of putting together a lecture that takes an hour is really slow. I have to go through tons and tons and tons of stuff and whittle it down into something that actually makes a cohesive story. So I just look through every single source I have, from Wikipedia, which is full of stuff and you have to be careful because it's not all necessarily accurate, but it can steer you towards other things. And then I have lots and lots of books that I rely on. Books that are about a specific composer or about a specific time are going to be more likely to yield kind of juicy little nuggets than an encyclopedia. Because encyclopedia is really just about the facts, most of them. But if you can get it, like I have a Mahler book, we're talking about Mahler's Fifth, and it's all focused in part on his relationship with Alma, his wife, who he met while he was writing the Fifth Symphony. And most people who approach the Mahler's Fifth Symphony, especially brass players, are just thinking about all these huge things to play and how exciting they are. But if you're looking at it from the point of view of a sort of a soundtrack to this torrid affair, it's kind of interesting. So that's what I do. I just look through everything I can find and try to whittle it down.
How has your history as a bass trombone player affected your job now?
It affected me a lot in terms of what I know, because when you work at something like that, because I studied and practiced for 10, 15 years, you don't realize it when you're in the sort of the cloud of the moment, but you know more about that thing than about 99% of the population, and what you just sort of take for granted. We tend to be so judgmental of ourselves, thinking, oh, I'm just a trombone player, what do I know, compared to so-and-so who's got a PhD in this or that. But that experience that you have and that knowledge you've accumulated is interesting, and it's something that you have, so you got to use it.
What advice do you have to us young musicians here looking to make it in the music business?
The advice would be to find what it is in yourself that's fascinated by this, which is true for any creative process. Because what you're doing, spending hours and hours in a practice room trying to get this thing to sound the way you think it should, it's an insane, obsessive thing to do. So something in you is really pushing to make this happen. And if you can figure out what that is, you can really identify what it is that makes you want to do this, then you'll probably be a lot more successful.
How does interpreting classical music differ from the more mainstream pop music, rock, blues, all that kind of thing?
That's a good question. Well, the thing is, with the music from hundreds of years ago, there's been a long time to sort through what's important and what's not. That's the main difference. So, we know that the Schubert-Traut Quintet is something that we're going to want to listen to for hundreds of years more, so it's worth investigating every tiny little corner of it. And with music of today, well, we don't know. We don't know if it's Lady Gaga or Prince or the Beatles. We assume the Beatles will probably be remembered for a while, but history has shown that's not necessarily the case. The people who are popular during their lifetime and even slightly after their lifetimes aren't necessarily ones that are remembered by history. There's so many that had such huge careers that are just washed aside. And that's one of the really interesting things about talking about music from today, popular music and jazz, and trying to figure out who's going to last. But anybody who tells you that they know or they're certain is wrong.
One final tricky question. What is your favorite color?
I was going to say blue, but I don't think that's true. I guess I have to fly off.
Yellow.
I have to fly off the chasm. I think I like this color right now. This saffron kind of color.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Can we straighten down?
Yes.
Very good.
This is Daniel Mills, video blogging. That was Tom Allen, broadcaster extraordinaire from CBC Radio, and awesome lecturer for our time here in the National Youth Orchestra Canada. You can do a few takes if you want to.
Are we on?
Yes, we're good.
Crazy. Crazy.
Excellent.
Crazy.
That was perfect.
Okay.